Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. He said he couldn't sleep that night. His voice was quiet, almost trembling, as if admitting something heavier than insomnia. The soft glow of the hallway light fell across his face, and in that half-shadow, I saw something in his eyes I couldn't quite name, not fear, not sadness, but something else. Something that made my heart beat a little faster. It was late. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that almost feels alive. Every creak in the wood, every whisper of wind outside seemed to echo louder than it should. I remember sitting there on the couch, the clock ticking past midnight, when he walked in wearing a gray t-shirt and that look, the one that always made me wonder what he was really thinking. "I just can't sleep," he said again, running a hand through his hair. "Mine's all over the place." I wanted to ask what was really bothering him, but something about his tone made me hesitate. Instead, I just nodded, pretending to focus on the movie playing on the screen. But I could feel his presence beside me, the warmth of him, the quiet tension that filled the air between us. It wasn't the first night like this. And it wouldn't be the last. He sat beside me, not too close, but close enough that I could hear the steady rhythm of his breathing. We didn't speak for a while, just listened to the faint hum of the TV. Then, out of nowhere, he said softly, "You ever feel like you can't stop thinking about something, or someone?" That question hung in the air like a secret neither of us wanted to admit. I could have laughed it off, changed the subject, but instead, I turned to look at him. His eyes met mine, and suddenly, it felt like time slowed down. There was a story behind those eyes when he hadn't told me yet. I saw it then, the way he avoided my gaze, the way his fingers tapped nervously against his leg. Something was pulling at him, something deeper than just another restless night. And for a moment, I wondered if I was part of it. Was it loneliness? Regret? Or something that had been growing between us for far too long to ignore? If you've ever been in that kind of moment, where silence says more than words ever could, you'll understand what I mean. That quiet pull, that unspoken connection you can't explain, only feel. But before I could ask what was really going on, he said something that made my heart stop for just a second. His voice dropped, almost to a whisper. "There's something I need to tell you, something I've been holding back." And, just like that, the air felt different. He looked at me, waiting, unsure if he should say it, or if I was even ready to hear it. He didn't say anything right away. The silence stretched between us, almost too heavy to bear. I could hear the faint ticking of the clock on the wall, the hum of the refrigerator in the next room, the quiet rhythm of our breathing. Everything felt amplified. He kept his eyes on the floor, his fingers fidgeting like he was fighting himself over whether to speak or not. Finally, he sighed and leaned back against the couch. "You ever feel like you're caught between what you should do and what you actually want?" he asked, his voice low. I didn't answer right away. That question hit deeper than he probably knew. Because lately, I'd been feeling the same, that quiet confusion that comes when emotions start to blur lines you thought were clear. I looked at him again, really looked this time. There was a tiredness in his face, but underneath it, something warm, something vulnerable. He laughed softly, though it didn't sound like a real laugh. "Forget it," he said. "It's nothing. I'm just overthinking." But it wasn't nothing. I could feel it. And maybe he could tell I didn't believe him, because his eyes met mine again, searching, almost asking for permission to say what he couldn't. We'd known each other for years. Friends first, then something like family, though we'd never labeled what we really were. We'd shared dinners, long drives, and quiet nights like this one. He'd been there for me when things fell apart. Maybe that's why it felt so strange, the way the air between us started to change. I tried to focus on the movie again, but the words on the screen blurred. I couldn't stop thinking about what he'd almost said, what he'd almost confessed. He shifted closer, not much, just enough for me to notice. The couch suddenly felt too small. My heart beat faster, and I wasn't sure if it was from nerves or something else entirely. There was a warmth between us, quiet but undeniable, like an invisible current neither of us could turn off. He rubbed the back of his neck and gave me a small smile. You ever think about how weird timing can be? He said. Like how some people walk into your life and suddenly, everything feels different? His words hung there, soft but heavy with meaning. I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to ask what he meant, to make him say it out loud. But another part of me was afraid that once the truth was out, there'd be no going back. I forced a small laugh. You're really in your head tonight, I said, trying to sound casual. Yeah, he whispered. I guess I am. Outside, a storm was starting to build. I could hear the wind brushing against the windows, the distant roll of thunder. It matched the tension in the room, quiet, unpredictable, waiting to break. He turned his head slightly toward me, his expression softer now. You know, sometimes I think we don't say things because we're scared of what they'll change, he said. But not saying them, sometimes that hurts more. I swallowed hard, unsure what to do with the weight of his words. The air between us was thick with unspoken truth, the kind that doesn't need to be said to be felt. Before I could reply, he stood up suddenly and walked to the window, staring out into the dark. Maybe it's better if I don't, he murmured. Maybe some things are better left unsaid. I watched him standing there, the dim light outlining his shoulders, the quiet tension in his stance. I wanted to reach out, to tell him it was okay to speak. But my voice caught somewhere between fear and longing. What was he trying so hard not to say? And why did I already feel like I knew? The rain started to fall not long after he turned away from the window. At first, it was light, a soft drizzle that tapped against the glass, but soon it grew heavier, filling the silence with the steady rhythm of a storm. He didn't move for a while, just stood there, watching the rain blur the lights outside. I could tell he was lost in thought, and a part of me wanted to ask what he was thinking. But another part didn't want to break the moment. Finally, he spoke. You ever think about how people hide behind what's easy? He asked quietly, still facing the window. They say they're fine, they laugh, they keep busy. But deep down, they're fighting something no one knows about. His words felt personal, too personal. I wanted to ask if that was how he felt, if that was what had been keeping him up at night. Instead, I said softly, maybe they're just waiting for someone to notice. That made him turn. His eyes met mine again, and in that instant, I saw something raw, something he'd been holding back for a long time. He took a slow breath, as if weighing his next words carefully. And what if someone does notice, he said. What then? The question hung between us, delicate and dangerous. I didn't answer, because honestly, I didn't know. All I knew was that the air felt different now, heavier, charged, like something important was about to happen. He sat down again, this time closer than before. His shoulder brushed mine, and neither of us moved away. The closeness felt both comforting and confusing. My mind told me to be careful, but my heart wasn't listening. He started talking about the past then, the people he'd trusted, the moments he wished he could take back. There was a quiet ache in his voice, the kind that comes from being hurt but never really healing. I listened, really listened, realizing how little I actually knew about the weight he carried. I think about how everything changes when you let someone in, he said. Sometimes for the better. Sometimes not. I wanted to tell him he could trust me, that I wasn't going anywhere. But the words felt too heavy to say out loud. Instead, I just nodded, hoping he could read what I couldn't say. The thunder rolled again, louder this time, and the lights flickered. For a moment, the whole room went dark, and I felt his hand brush against mine. Neither of us moved away. It wasn't planned, it wasn't dramatic, just a quiet, human moment that said everything we couldn't speak. When the lights came back on, he gave a small, nervous laugh. Guess the storm's not letting up, he said. No, I replied softly. It's not. But I wasn't talking about the weather anymore, and I think he knew that. For the rest of the night, we sat there, not saying much, just existing in the same space, both of us unsure what would happen next. The tension was still there, like a secret that refused to stay hidden. And as I watched him staring at the flickering screen again, I couldn't help but wonder, what exactly was he fighting so hard to keep inside? Was it guilt? Fear? Or something far more complicated? The storm outside only grew louder as the night went on. Wind howled through the cracks of the old windows, and the sound of rain hitting the roof became almost deafening. Inside, though, it was a different kind of storm, quieter, but stronger. Every unspoken word between us seemed to echo louder than the thunder. He was still sitting beside me, elbows resting on his knees, staring at the floor like it held all the answers he couldn't say out loud. I could see the muscles in his jaw tighten, like he was trying to hold something in, something that wanted to break free. Finally, he whispered, "There's something you don't know about me." The words sent a chill down my spine. Not because they sounded threatening, but because of the way he said them, calm, steady, almost too controlled. I turned to face him, waiting. He didn't look up. "I thought I could forget it," he went on. "But some things don't stay buried, no matter how hard you try." For a moment, the only sound was the rain against the window. My mind raced through possibilities. Was it about someone else? Something from his past? Or was this about us, the connection that had been quietly building, night after night, until it couldn't be ignored anymore? When he finally lifted his head, his eyes looked different, darker, more vulnerable. "You ever have a moment where you realize you crossed a line you can't come back from?" he asked. I didn't know what to say. Because maybe, in our own quiet way, we already had. The lights flickered again, and this time they didn't come back right away. The room fell into darkness, except for the faint glow from the storm outside. I could feel my pulse quicken as he shifted closer, his voice low. "I didn't mean for it to get this far," he said. "But I can't pretend anymore. Not tonight." The words hung in the dark, trembling with weight. My breath caught, and for a second, I thought he was going to tell me everything, the truth he'd been holding on to, the secret sitting between us. But before he could speak again, a loud crash from outside made us both jump. The power flickered back on, flooding the room with light, and whatever he was about to say vanished with it. He looked toward the window, then back at me, his face pale, conflicted. "I should probably go," he murmured, standing too quickly. "Wait," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "If you leave now, will you ever tell me what you were going to say?" He hesitated at the door, rain roaring behind him. His hand lingered on the handle, his eyes meeting mine one last time. "Maybe," he said softly. "But not tonight." And just like that, he was gone, leaving behind a silence that felt louder than the storm itself. The door closed behind him, and for a long moment, I just sat there, frozen. The sound of the rain filled the space he'd left, but it wasn't enough to drown out the echo of his last words. Maybe, but not tonight. It was such a simple thing to say, but it carried so much weight, like a promise and a warning all at once. I stared at the door, half expecting him to come back. He didn't. The house felt different now, emptier, colder. The air that had been charged with quiet tension just moments ago now felt hollow, like the calm after something you didn't realize was a storm until it was gone. I tried to convince myself that it was just another conversation that ended too soon. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. There was something about the way he looked at me before leaving, something unsettled, almost haunted. It wasn't just guilt. It was fear. The next morning, I woke to gray skies and silence. I checked my phone, no messages. Nothing. Hours passed before I finally went outside, needing to breathe. The rain had stopped, but the air still carried that heavy, after-storm stillness. That's when I saw it, his car parked down the street. Empty. Door slightly open. My stomach twisted. He'd left hours ago. Why was his car still here? I walked closer, calling his name, but there was no answer. Inside, on the passenger seat, was a folded piece of paper. My hands trembled as I opened it. "Some things can't stay hidden forever. Don't come looking for me." The words were rushed, messy, his handwriting, but shakier than usual. I stood there for a long time, staring at the note, my mind spinning. What was he hiding? What couldn't stay hidden? I went back inside, the note still in my hand. The night before replayed over and over in my mind, the way he looked at me, the things he almost said. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd missed something right in front of me. By evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I called him. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Nothing. I sent a message, no reply. Hours later, as the sky turned orange and the streetlights flickered on, there was a knock at my door. For a moment, I thought it was him. But when I opened it, it wasn't. It was someone I hadn't seen in months, his closest friend, Daniel. His expression was tense, eyes darting past me like he was checking if someone else was there. "We need to talk," he said quietly. My heart skipped. About what? He hesitated, then pulled something from his jacket, a small flash drive. "He left this with me," he said. "Told me to give it to you if anything happened." I took it slowly, my pulse racing. "What do you mean if anything happened?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "He's been keeping something from you. From everyone. But whatever's on that drive, it's the reason he didn't sleep. The reason he left." The air between us grew thick again. That same familiar tension, only this time it wasn't just emotional. It was real. Tangible. Dangerous. I looked down at the flash drive, my reflection faint in its dark surface. Part of me wanted to plug it in immediately. Another part of me wasn't sure I was ready for what I'd find. Daniel stepped back toward the door, his voice low. "Just be careful. Once you see it, there's no going back." And then he was gone, leaving me alone with the sound of the wind outside and the tiny piece of plastic that could change everything. I held the flash drive in my hand for a long time, staring at it like it might reveal its secrets on its own. Every word he'd said that night kept replaying in my mind. Some things can't stay hidden forever. I didn't know what I was more afraid of, what I might find, or what it would mean for the two of us once I knew. Eventually, I plugged it into my laptop. The screen flickered, and a single video file appeared, no name, no date, just a blank icon. My heart pounded as I clicked play. The video opened to his face. He was sitting in the same room we'd shared that night, looking tired but determined. "If you're watching this," he began, voice quiet but steady, "then I didn't have the courage to tell you in person. I didn't lie when I said I couldn't sleep. But it wasn't just guilt keeping me up, it was fear. There's something I've been hiding, not because I wanted to, but because I didn't know how to make you understand." He paused, running a hand through his hair, the same nervous habit I'd seen 100 times. "The truth is, I wasn't supposed to meet you at all. The night we met, it wasn't by chance. I was looking for someone else, someone connected to something I was trying to leave behind. But then I found you. And everything changed." My stomach twisted. He continued, eyes filled with regret. "I made mistakes before I knew you. People got hurt. I thought I could outrun it. I thought keeping it buried would protect you. But it followed me here." He leaned closer to the camera, his voice trembling. "If you see this, don't trust Daniel. He's not who you think he is." The video ended abruptly. I froze. For a moment, the room felt too small, too quiet. I turned toward the window, and that's when I saw him. Daniel, standing outside in the rain, looking straight at me. He smiled faintly, almost apologetically, then lifted his phone. My own phone buzzed on the table. A new message appeared. "Now you know. But you don't know everything." Before I could react, he was gone. I rushed outside, but the street was empty, the sound of rain swallowing everything else. My mind raced. Had he known I'd watch the video tonight? Was he watching me now? Inside, the laptop screen flickered again. The video file reopened on its own. But this time, it wasn't him speaking. It was Daniel's voice. "Some stories," he said softly, "aren't meant to end the way you think." And just like that, the screen went black. For a long time after the screen went black, I just sat there frozen in silence, staring at my reflection in the dark laptop screen. My thoughts were a storm of questions. Who was Daniel really? And what exactly had he meant by, "Some stories aren't meant to end the way you think"? I replayed the video, but it stopped at the same point every time. just his warning, the look of regret in his eyes, and that final, haunting message. I wanted to believe he was still out there, that he'd made it somewhere safe. But part of me knew that whatever he'd been caught up in, it wasn't simple. Days passed. The rain finally stopped, but the quiet didn't bring peace. I started noticing little things, missed calls from unknown numbers, cars that slowed down near my house, and once, a note slipped under my door with nothing but a single line written on it: "You were never supposed to know." That night, I packed a bag and left. Not because I was afraid, but because I realized something: he'd tried to protect me. Whatever secret he was running from, whatever truth Daniel had twisted, it all came back to one thing: he cared enough to walk away before it destroyed us both. Weeks later, I got one last message from an unknown number. It wasn't words, just a picture, the ocean at sunset, the same view from the place he once said he wanted to disappear to. Maybe it was his way of saying he'd made it out. Maybe it was just a goodbye. Either way, it was enough. I never saw him again. But sometimes, when I hear the sound of rain against the window, I remember that night, the way he looked at me when he said he couldn't sleep, the storm building outside and inside, and the feeling that something bigger than both of us had started in that small, quiet moment. Love, I realized, doesn't always come wrapped in perfect timing or happy endings. Sometimes it's just about the people who walk into your life, change you in ways you can't explain, and leave you with a truth you didn't know you needed. If you were in my place, would you have wanted to know everything or kept the mystery alive? Tell me what you think in the comments. And if you want a sequel, maybe one day, I'll tell you what happened when I finally found out where he went. Summary: a sleepless confession turns into a storm of secrets when a late-night conversation reveals that nothing and no one is what it seems. Between hidden truths, emotional tension, and a love caught in the crossfire of past mistakes, this story uncovers how one night can change everything.